We are driven in our society by emotionalism, and that has been channeled into, let's say, hate in terms of Jewish people. So it's very much on an emotional level. And like you said, if they knew the facts of what's behind what they think their reasons for their hatred is, it's irrelevant. Nothing holds water. I know a lot about the history of the Middle East and all the things that were going on, and the religious wars, and what happened in 1948 with Israel, etc., etc. The narrative that's been peddled that is behind all the hate is completely false narrative.
So, Steve Maltz, again, thank you for meeting with me to discuss Why Us? The Jewish Question, based around your recent book. So this is our third discussion, and we're going to consider, what does the world's hatred of Jews tell us about the average man or woman in the street today? So first of all, Steve, perhaps again you could size the problem for us. And then go on to, why do you think there is this severe discomfort, it would seem, with so many people? I call it a continuum of discomfort. Discomfort, uneasiness and hatred.
Yep.
Okay, so size the problem.
I would suggest it's probably the biggest social issue in the world today, only because of what's happened over the last 2 years. Because antisemitism affects everybody, not just Jewish people. I feel most sorry for Christians that have been dragged into it unconsciously. They probably don't realise it, because they should know better. They should know that the spiritual war that is behind everything, and the fact that Jews are God's chosen people and always will be. So
they're God's chosen people because God has a purpose, and that purpose is still being worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what the devil doesn't like, because the devil knows that his days are numbered, and it's all connected to Israel. And we can talk about prophecies, but that's probably not the time here to do that. But so the devil hates God, hates the Jewish people, hates Christians, and that is reflected in the world that we see today. So he's using the situation in Gaza, but he's taking it to sort of the nth degree. And now we see such hatred of Jewish people. Where else can you go? Can you go to, say, a Glastonbury and see someone pacing up and down the stage and saying, "Death to the IDF"? Can you imagine if it was a black audience and he said, "Death to black people"? The world would be in an uproar, Now, this chap doing that was investigated by the local police, and they didn't even consider it a hate crime, that you'd ask for the death of a group of people. And those in the audience were singing along.
Yeah.
And the BBC broadcast it.
It's tremendous, to my mind at any rate, it is tremendously irrational.
Yeah.
And I say that simply because there are so many woes going on in this world at the moment that people don't turn a hair at. All sorts of persecutions, all sorts of group-wide murders. You only have to think of Ukraine, for example. Has anybody in London gone on a march for Ukraine? Probably no. Things that are going on elsewhere in the world. Nigeria, Myanmar. Okay, but this one hatred is the supreme hatred.
Supreme, and there's a word for it. There's a phrase called Israel derangement syndrome.
Yes.
It's basically, people focus so much on this one country to the exclusion of others that you think there is just something very strange going on.
So people cease to think. To think, actually.
There's no
think
thought.
Rationally.
There's no thought. We are driven in our society by emotionalism, and that has been channeled into, let's say, hate in terms of Jewish people. So it's very much on an emotional level. And like you said, if they knew the facts of what's behind what they think their reasons for their hatred is, it's irrelevant. Nothing holds water. I know a lot about the history of the Middle East and all the things that were going on, and the religious wars, and what happened in 1948 with Israel, etc., etc. The narrative that's been peddled that is behind all the hate is completely false narrative, and again, that is too big a subject for us to cover. Just to say that it exists, it does exist though. So.
Let's move this in a slightly more positive direction. Then, given that all Christians understand, at least in theory, Jesus to be the Jewish Messiah, how should we, and I'm now thinking particularly of Christians, view Jesus or Yeshua, to give him his Hebrew name?
Well, it's basically, you've just said it. They should recognise him as the Jewish Messiah, and then wonder why Jewish people don't get it. And like I said before, Jewish people don't get it because the church has not shown the Jewish Messiah to the Jewish people. Now, if the church understood the Jewish background of Jesus more, the church would be so blessed in so many different ways, from the way that it conducts itself, worship, festivals. There's just so much. But it chose a different path, and it needs to change.
Tragic, really. But the church perhaps has this mandate to make Israel jealous of that which Israel possesses, and yet we have found our way to making Israel nauseous, I would say,
absolutely,
rather than jealous.
That is an absolute joke. And it also says in Romans 11, do not boast against the branches. In other words, it's warning Gentiles that if you disrespect the natural branches, don't you think I could take you away from the tree?
Yes.
And that is a major statement that no one has really understood or want to understand.
It's one that we turn a bit of a blind eye to, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay, in the light of all of this, then, what is our obligation to Yeshua, Jesus, in the here and now, perhaps more generally, for people watching this video?
There is a scripture, one that was given to me a few months ago, and it's Isaiah 40, verse 1, comfort, comfort my people. And the church should be comforting Israel, not sort of disrespecting it or going along with the world's agenda. It should be there to come alongside Jewish people when there's been a synagogue bombing or something else happening in society. Bondi Beach, what happened there? It's just amazing that those who go on Palestinian marches, how they disrespected that whole event and just swept the whole thing under the carpet. The fact that while October the 7th was actually happening 2 years ago, the pro-Palestinians were already on marches declaring hatred for Israel, even before Israel had retaliated after the Hamas atrocity. So much was the hatred there. It's just, and the church must not be dragged into this. Comfort my people.
Yeah. So perhaps the deepest question for the church then is to decide actually which side it stands upon. Yeah. Okay, so we end on a slightly low note, but we'll meet again to have a further and final discussion. Just to say for our viewers that there is a link to some relevant material on the Gospel for All website that's freely downloadable, including a link to your own book. Okay, thank you again, Steve.
That's all right, thank you.